Hello, Jan Roberts here. I'm getting in the swing again of doing Facebook Lives, and this one was about something. We were at a Junior Chamber International Santen Gala dinner, which was wonderful on Saturday night here in Santen in South Africa. And I was listening to a keynote speaker, and it's one thing that he said is also the line for this chat is doing something is no longer enough. And I think that is something that stuck with me amongst other things, because there was a lot of valuable insights he gave to us. But it is no longer enough. Doing something occasionally. I mean, we all know the kind of issues that are going on around the world. We've all known that there is issues in our families, in our communities, in our organizations. And we might even have a thought about what we could do, or maybe just about the problems that are there. See, this is still something that I find an issue. We were at a big conference not so long ago in Santen either, and there were so many talks, but very, very few talked about solutions. They talked about what's wrong, the problems we have and all that. Now, I don't know about you, but I am sick to the back teeth about just hearing about problems. I have no challenge with hearing about problems, but please come with some solutions. I don't care if they're wrong, but we can never solve any of these problems if all we do is moan and complain and all is so bad and it's their fault, it's the government, it's the community, it's maybe your spouse, your friend, your dog, your neighbor. It's everybody else's fault, and I call it blame storming. We need to stop blame storming and start taking responsibility for what we can do about the situation. And you know, you've all heard about be the change you want to see in the world. Well, what does that really mean? That means that we need to become the person we want to see in the world. We need to become what we are projecting in this world. Because I mean, you've heard this before, maybe not, but you know that everybody lights up a room. You might be surprised, but hold on. Some of them when they come in, and some of them when they leave. Now, when do you light up a room? You know, and maybe they won't tell you, but there is so many things that are wrong. We do something sometimes and makes us feel better, and then okay, we're done again. You know, but what I'm really talking into is what really struck with me when he said that is we need to become more intentional. I do a keynote talk about it as well, where I say intentionality, the present we give to ourselves. Because think about it. And it's not only about the situation that's going on around us, the manipulation and all the other kind of stuff, corruption, you mentioned it. It's all there because there is no leadership around the world, not at the levels where we're looking at either. But when I say no leadership, we're all leaders. And leadership begins with personal leadership, and personal leadership begins with self-development. So it goes a little bit further like that. But generally speaking, about the bigger leadership that we look at, and I can mention a few, but I am not political. One of the reasons I would never go into politics, because I'm too honest, which is certainly lacking in politics today. Integrity, honesty, transparency. What about working for the people who chose you, who voted you in, rather than working for people who are not even in your own country, if you know, because there's a lot of puppeteering going on, and you all know what I'm talking about, but it just gets me riled up. So I want to, as much as possible, stay away from it, especially in this talk. I've done a few talks about it, but we need to look in the mirror and see, you know, what can I do to make a difference today? Because the only way, we can complain about tomorrow and, oh, this is going to happen and that. But let me tell you something. If you haven't heard it from me already, and you should if you've listened to me before, the only thing that we can guarantee that our tomorrow will be better is if we do something to develop ourselves today, to grow ourselves today. Now my question to you is, what are you doing intentionally to grow yourself today? Not sometime, not, I mean, nice to have a wonderful thought, not just thinking of it and say, okay, you know, I've got to do that. Because most of the time it happens tomorrow. And every tomorrow we know that tomorrow never comes, but we're sitting there constantly listening to complaining I don't take part in all that complaining anymore. I just say to people, what is the solution that you have right now about the situation you're talking about? Yeah, but, no, but it doesn't matter what it is. But what is that something that we need to do into intentionally create from something, go to intentionally every day? That's something that we need to think about. When we become intentional, instead of having good intentions, and we wake up in the morning with that intentionality in us, just think how much better our days can become when we are indeed intentional in everything we do. So have a look around yourself. Realize that doing something doesn't work anymore. It's not enough. If we all can become more intentional and do something and speak up, if we can speak up for those that are suffering, if we can speak up about the injustices in this world, and there's a long list of them, and that's been added in the last 3 years, but there is so many injustices in this world happening around us right now. What can we do? What can we do from within our heart to say, it's time to stand up? See, the only time you should be on your knees is if you're praying, and you better do that every day, especially with what's happening around us. But really, what can we do to make a difference? And that is something that we can all make a bigger difference. But it is not about, we're going to change the world, we're going to do this. No, let's change ourselves. Let's grow ourselves, and let's become the best person we can be, the best people we can be, because I know each and every one of you matters. Each and every one of you has got a purpose in life. But none of us are ever going to get there, and I include myself, is if we keep doing something sometimes. We don't have to do everything every time, but we need to become more intentional. And when we become more intentional in our daily progress, when we start developing ourselves, I talk about self-care as well. There's a series coming out very shortly about self-care, which has got an ebook and a workbook as well, because self-care is also part of it. What are you doing about your self-care today? See, even if you've got great intentions about doing things, not only for ourselves, but for our families, for our communities, for our country, indeed on a bigger scale, it doesn't matter. But how well can we do that if we become ill or if we die? So looking after ourselves is also something we need to consider. I'm throwing a few things at you here as they come to me, because I'm just felt like I need to say something about that. Doing something is no longer enough. It never was, but we all need to do more. We can all do more. We need to all hold ourselves accountable first, and then show that accountability to the world, show the values within us, because values is also part of it. When you look at leadership, I mentioned already, there is no values left in leadership. And I mentioned a few of them, but what are your values? And values don't necessarily have to mean like basic human values like listening, forgiveness, restraint, respect, hope, developing people, developing yourself, integrity. I'm just mentioning a few, there's many of them. Compassion, which my wife, Dr. Robberts, wrote that value. And it's available on her website, rtmore.com, as well, for downloading, to see how powerful that really is. We need more compassion. We need to connect more at the heart level. We need to get away from that head and go to the heart. So what values are yours? What values, what in life will you never compromise on? Maybe that's worth thinking about. What are your strengths? How do you communicate with people? There's so many things that we need to get to know about ourselves. Know thyself. We've all heard it before. Know thyself. We need to do more than just that something. We need to become more intentional. Who are we? What do we stand for? Because if you don't stand for anything, you fall. I'm not going to say for everything, you fall. And that's what's happening with a lot of these leaders. You will see them tumbling. And I mean, it's not about I told you so, but we will see them tumbling, because they will not be able to stay up much longer. And we need to be ready. We need to start developing ourselves. We need to develop the people around us. We need to make sure, even from the leadership perspective, if we can just help grow people, because personal development is where it's at. if we can just help grow people and help them to develop themselves, but we need to show that ourselves. We need to walk the walk. We cannot just talk the talk, but we need to do that. So think about these kind of things. I think I've thrown enough at you at the moment, but doing something is no longer enough. Let's all become intentional and let us make a difference in our lives, and by doing so, make a difference in the people around us, because everyone matters. You matter. I'll speak to you soon. Have a wonderful rest of your Tuesday and enjoy. Remember, the time is now. Let's start to take action. Let's get on our feet. Let's speak up. Let's make a difference together.